What up YouTube, it's your man Who'sby back with another video. So this is pretty much going to be describing how to use your aperture and your shutter speed for people who don't know how to shoot in manual mode. So you got a brand new camera, digital, film, whatever it may be, and you don't know how to shoot in manual mode. You've been shooting a lot of photos just on automatic, not really being able to take full advantage of your camera because you don't know what any of these numbers mean on your lenses or on your camera itself. So I'm going to be telling you the difference between the two and how they work together so you can create your own visual art, you can create your own style of photography, and you can have your own look to anything that you're shooting. Because I mean, to be honest with you, anybody can buy a camera at any price, any expensive or cheap camera, set it on automatic, and then take a picture. I mean, that will make everybody a photographer. But what makes a good photographer is knowing their equipment and how to control light and how to work with the light that is given with you. So let's say if you're using natural light or if you're using artificial light. I mean, all light is different. You know, some's gonna be brighter than others, some's gonna be softer than others, pause. But with that being said, you want to be able to know how to set your camera settings appropriately so that you can take that perfect photo. So basically, here's the difference between aperture and shutter speed. I like to use the comparison of an eyeball, right? So what I'm gonna do, sounds funny, right? Is basically use my Mamiya RB67 as an example, right? So this one has the aperture and shutter speed on the actual lens. So I don't know if you can see it from here, but it's gonna be in numbers right there where it goes from 3.8, focus, to 32. It's upside down, but that is your aperture. The 3.8 being the widest aperture, meaning that you're allowing the most light in to your lens. And then the 32, meaning that's going to be your smallest aperture, meaning that you're allowing the least amount of possible light in for the camera lens or whatever you're using. Now, the way I like to compare that to the human eyeball is if I have my aperture of my actual eyeball set to 3.8, that means I have my eyes open completely wide, allowing the most light possible from wherever my light source is coming from into my eye. So think about it like this. Always remember, the wider open your eye is on your actual eye is the most amount of light you're letting in, meaning that you have the lowest aperture number set on your camera. If I have it set to 32, which is what my camera here has on the lens, that means I'm having my eyes closed as possible, letting the least amount of light into my lens, right? So that's the way I remember it that way. Now, when it comes to shutter speed is going to be on my lens given on, let me zoom in on this, the top portion where you will be able to see it from, shit, you know what? I'm gonna just take this off, bro, because it'll be a lot easier. Be careful. It's fully mechanical. Now, where we at? See a little better this way. So as you can see, we have my shutter speeds here. It looks, might be backwards, but that's 400th of a second, all the way down to 1 second. Now, obviously with your 1 second, if you have it set to 1 second, that means you're allowing your eye to be open for 1 whole second before you blink. That's how long you're allowing your lens to absorb the light. You're giving your lens or your camera 1 whole second to allow light to come through. Now, as we all know, photography is all about light. So let's say, for instance, if I'm shooting in natural light outside, it's a bright sunny day in Florida, and I want to have my aperture set to, and remember, your aperture is how wide your eyes open. Let's go not necessarily fully wide open, but let's say if it was set to about 5.6, right? So we're gonna set it to 5.6. Well, I mean, you're not gonna look at the sun for a whole second with your eye open, right? So we're definitely not gonna set your shutter speed to 1, because you're gonna be letting 1 second of light into your lens. That's a lot of light. You want to set that shutter speed as fast as possible because you don't need to absorb as much light because you're outside. There's light everywhere. The only time you'll need to have a slower shutter speed is if you're shooting in darker situations, like if you're shooting at night or you're shooting indoors with lower light. Then you want to try to allow more light into your photo so that you can get a clearer picture of what you're taking a shot of. So you always want to have a faster shutter speed if you're shooting in the sun, if you're shooting in bright light, because you don't need as much light coming in. You can literally open your eye and close it real quick and you get enough light that you need. Like I mentioned, on the reverse side, let's say if you're shooting in the dark, you're going to want to have your aperture as open as wide as possible, but you want to have a longer shutter speed. You want to have it closer to 1 second, not necessarily on 1 second, but closer to that side of the shutter speed. So that's pretty much how I remember how to shoot the aperture versus, and using your shutter speeds, because like I mentioned, originally my photos were fucking terrible. I mean, I'm not no expert, bro. I just know how to use it. But all I'm saying is that if you want to be a good photographer and you want to learn how to shoot and have your own style of photography, especially if you're shooting film, then you're going to need to learn how to use and the difference between having a low aperture, a high aperture, and a low shutter speed and a high shutter speed, and how to use them to your advantage to be able to take a great photo. So, I mean, in a nutshell, with that being said, I mean, you can always get a light meter that's going to be able to read off the how much light is given to you, and it'll give you the appropriate aperture and shutter speed if you want to do it that way. But I mean, it's possible to just practice and know that, hey, when I'm shooting, I mean, I live in Florida, so it's bright as hell. I'm able to kind of look around and say, you know what, it's a little overcast today. I think instead of shooting with at 3.8, I'm gonna shoot at like maybe 5.6 apertures. I'm not gonna open it completely, but just open it up enough, or I'm gonna set it to a higher speed. That way it'll just blink it out a little bit. I mean, that's just an example, but just throwing that out there, that's how you're going to be able to create your own personal style of photography, and you won't overexpose or underexpose your photos. You only get one opportunity to take a good photo with film. You really learn how to shoot like that when you're using film, because digital is kind of cheating. I mean, you don't really learn too much shooting digital because it kind of does it for you. So I was getting to a point where I was getting it was very easy for me to take a photo just by saying, all right, man, I think my photos are coming out brighter. You can kind of adjust the settings on your DSLR so you can kind of see where it's going, but that wasn't teaching me anything. It was kind of just, allowing me to cheat and not learn necessarily how to take the photo. But when you're shooting with you have one shot to, get it right, you want to learn how to, set your aperture and your shutter speed accordingly. That way you can take the fire picture, and then you can, have your own style. That way you can control the light around you, because that's what you want to do in photography. You want to have control of the light and know how to adjust your settings based on the type of camera you have. So that's it. Honestly, what I wanted to go over as well, one thing I wanted to do in my videos that I do is anytime I am wearing or I want to support any black businesses or black fashion brands, this hat was actually made by One Borough. You can find it at One Borough on Instagram, and it's exclusive. I mean, I'm from Tampa, so I definitely had to get the Tampa Tampa Bay Rays with the lightning on it, and it had native on the side. So check out One Borough, because definitely want to support that, especially if you're from Tampa. So definitely look into that, because he has that fire. This is one of my favorite hats now. It matches my house, my walls. It's my favorite color. And yeah, it goes with everything. So support black businesses all 2021 and beyond, because y'all got y'all style from us anyway. So y'all might as well just keep buying from us. You know what I mean? Support the hustle, African-American culture, people of color, and things like that. And just small businesses in general, because the world's changing. So if this video was helpful, if you learned how to aperture versus shutter speed and how it works through this, and even if you didn't, if you just like my hat or my shirt, go Gators. Give me a like, subscribe, comment, share it with your friends. But listen, this is how you're going to learn how to take your own personal style of photography and not overexpose or underexpose your photos. All right, I'll talk to y'all later, and peace.